Hello, I hope you're enjoying this month's sew along as we celebrate the 10th anniversary of Sweet Pea. Since we're working on a sewing machine cover, I thought you might like to hear my own sewing story and about my first machine. I loved watching my mum sew, and I could sit and watch her for hours. I was completely fascinated by it. When I was about 4, she bought me my first sewing machine, but it was more of a toy and it drove us both crazy. It was so useless, and poor mum, she had to just sit there rethreading it every 5 seconds. So eventually she let me use her sewing machine. It was a really old one. It was electric, but you could only do a straight stitch and zigzag. Funnily enough, we were totally happy with those 2 stitches, which is incredible how much machines have now changed over the years. I made some terrible stuff that I thought was fantastic. Mum had a bit of a supply of calico and muslin, which was cheap. So I got all enthusiastic and made dolls' clothes and a pair of horrendous bikinis. Nothing had a proper seam or hem or anything, but I just thought it was great. My love of sewing continued right throughout my life, and when I first started work, my parents charged me board. And after a few months, my mum surprised me and she'd used the money to buy me my first real sewing machine. It had some fancy stitches and I was pretty obsessed. I made some pretty strange clothes because I just wanted to use every stitch that was on that machine. And it was my mum who taught me to sew and her mother taught her. You could probably say I was always going to get the sewing gene, as both my grandmothers sewed for a living. My grandmother on my father's side loved sewing and pretty well all sorts of crafts, and we'd go there for dinner most Sundays, and I just headed straight for the spare room. She had things laid out on the bed, everything she'd made. She used to make stuff for craft stalls and everything as fundraisers for the Bowls Club, where she also did the flower decorations and everything for events. And she had a tiny sewing room, and I just fiddle around for hours and look at all her old buttons and other treasures. I'm not really sure where Mum's mother sewed, but she was a tailoress as well. I never really saw any mess of sewing or anything in her house, but she made Mum some beautiful dresses for debutante balls and all that sort of things. After my children were born, the spool on my sewing machine broke, and that sort of started my whole adventure into machine embroidery. I had to get a new machine. I told my husband because the spool was broken, so I went out and bought a very cheap embroidery machine with just a 4x4 hoop, and I had so much fun with that. It was funny, later on I actually Googled how much, or like to see if I could have bought a spool for that sewing machine. I think it was probably a part worth about $14, so I was a little bit sneaky. After that, he said I'd spent so much on the machine I should try to make some stuff and sell it at craft markets and stalls, which I did, but I couldn't find anything I actually wanted to sew and sell, or actually that I could sew and would sell, so I started doing my own designs. There's no way I would have thought back then that one day my designs would be stitched out in homes like all around the world. I would never have believed it. And I think my grandmothers would be incredibly proud, not only of me, but their other granddaughter Annette, and of course their other children who work here, their other great-granddaughters and their great-grandson who also work here. So I hope you all continue to enjoy our designs for many years to come. And who knows, maybe my great-grandchildren will work here one day too. I hope you're enjoying this month's sew along as we celebrate the 10th anniversary of Sweet Pea. If you like our sewing machine cover and want to check out our other designs, head on over to our website, which is swpea.com.